Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today we're going to be talking about 15 games that play in 15 minutes or less. With two caveats. You already know the first caveat. It's always present. The first caveat is there's more than 15 games. I'm sorry, I tried. I was going to do 10 games that played in 15 minutes or less, but 15 games sounds better and it lets me talk about more games. And that worked well up until I was pulling the games off the shelf and realized I forgot 3 games. So now there's 18 games that play in 15 minutes or less. It's close enough, really. And then the second caveat is going to be that these are games that I have definitely experienced in 15 minutes or less. There are times they're a little bit more. Think of it as the 15 to 30 minute range, with very often them being on the 15 minute end. So some of these can drift a bit in that time frame. Some of these say 20 minutes on the box, but I've gotten them done in 15 minutes or less, or they are not on this list. And with that, let's go ahead and start off first with the 3 that they're kind of out of order. The other 15 I ranked them in terms of how much I like them, going from 15 down to 1, but the last 3, because they were extra additions on the end, I was like, I can either re-rank the whole list, or I can just talk about them separately, and let's talk about them separately. So number 18 over here is going to be, and again, these 3 are out of order. Don't, just think of them as separate. Think of them as things that I forgot to talk about, and then I'm talking about anyway, because that's what they are. We have 4 Northwood over here. 4 Northwood is a solo game from Side Room Games, and this one is a solo trick-taking game. It's a solo trick-taking puzzle. I have a full review on the channel. You can check that out. Many of these I have full reviews of, some not so much. I should review all these games. But 4 Northwood is a solo trick-taking game. It plays officially according to the box, plays in 20 minutes. I've easily knocked this out in 15. By the way, I neglected. I specifically did not choose games like Pandemic, where it's a great game, and I've had games of Pandemic that I lost so quickly that it was under 15 minutes. But I avoided those. I went for things that genuinely you can knock out in 15 minutes. And despite the 20 minutes on the box, you can knock out 4 Northwood in 15 minutes if you're playing it decently aggressively. If you're not going too fast, not going too slow. But you're basically facing off against, 8 different kingdoms in this game, one at a time, trying to engage in a trick-taking back and forth, where there's a trump in play, and there's your hand, and you're trying to figure out how many tricks you need to win or not win, and how you can tactically make sure you lose or not lose against the random draw of the deck, but while knowing the card distribution and having abilities at play to help you manage your way through it. I think it's a very compelling puzzle. I really enjoy this one. 4 Northwood's a fantastic game. It absolutely should be higher up on this list if it were in the rankings, but it's not, so 4 Northwood. Then we have Marvel Remix. Marvel Remix is one that would be lower down this list. I like this game while not being in love with it, but it definitely should be included on this list because, first of all, I've knocked this game out in easily 10 minutes. Again, the box says 20 minutes, but I've had this game played in easily 10 minutes. Sometimes I'd say 15 to 20 is very common, but you can knock it out so quickly, especially if you're playing it as a 2-player game. This plays 2 to 6 players, which means there is going to be a range and time frame. That 2 to 6 players in that 20 minutes, if you're playing a 6-player game, might even be 30 minutes. I think a 3 to 4 player game comes in at around 20, and then, again, 2-player game can be 10 to 15 minutes easily as you go through this game. But basically in Marvel Remix, you're playing through a hand of cards. You are building up the ideal hand as you go through it, which is one of the reasons I really enjoy this, because you have all the Marvel IP, you have all the characters that you know and love, and you're going to be, well, some of you know and love them, some of you are sick of Marvel, but effectively, you're building up the perfect hand in the game. This is based off of the game Fantasy Realms. You may have played Red Rising as well from Stonemaier Games that uses a similar concept, but the general idea is you have cards that are worth points, and then you have ways you combine cards, and it's the combinations of cards where the game thrives. As you go through the game, there's going to be a central discard pile, and you're going to be drawing cards and discarding cards, constantly adjusting that pile, until eventually the central discard pile overflows, at which point the game end is triggered. It's your job to try to build the best hand through the process of drawing and or drawing from the deck or the discard pile based on other people's rejects. This game epitomizes the description, the phrase of one man's trash is another man's treasure. That is 100% true in Marvel Remix, as other players' trash very quickly become that perfect card that's going to jump your score by like 37 points. This is a very fun game. It's a little random at times. Like, this is a game where you can score incredibly well and score mediocrely. Mediocrely is not a word. You can have mediocre or incredibly high scores in this game, and a lot of that will come down to some of the luck of the draw, the discard, how well your hand combines. But for that 15-minute play, it's easy and fun to go through Marvel Remix. And then for the last one before we dive into the actual 15, we have the Crew Mission Deep Sea, and I was so upset that I forgot this one. Again, the box on this says 20 minutes, and it does depend on how you're engaging with it, but you can easily have rounds of the Crew that are easily 10 to 15 minutes, not a problem at all. In the Crew, you're playing a cooperative trick-taking games. 2 of the games I forgot are part of the 15-minute line over here. But the Crew Mission Deep Sea, you're going to be playing through a cooperative game of trick-taking. So this is solo trick-taking, now we have cooperative trick-taking. No, we don't have regular trick-taking on this list, because Ghosts of Christmas, fantastic as it is, definitely more than 15 minutes. But same with Can of the Box, by the way. But the crew mission deep sea, every round, you're going to play this game, you're often going to sit down for multiple rounds. But if you just want to play around, you can easily open up the box, pull out a few cards, deal some people, and you can knock this out in 15 minutes as an excellent filler experience. The crew mission deep sea, like I said already, cooperative trick taking, 3 to 5 players, based on the original The Crew Quest for Planet 9 or something like that, I don't remember exactly. But this one's just a better version of the same game. Both are fantastic, but it gives you goals to go through as you have to figure out, okay, great, I have to win 3 tricks with a 7, and you have to make sure you only win 2 tricks across the course of the game. And you have to make sure that you lose a trick while playing an 8 as your high card. And you have all these different rules in play that give you specific things, and you work together with other players, combined with the cards that are dealt to you, to give you a puzzle where you are working with others. This is the game that made me like trick-taking. Until I played this game, every trick-taking game I had ever played before this wasn't for me. And this started me back down that journey. And still, not every trick-taking game is for me, but it started me back down the journey and got me back into a place where I now enjoy and seek out. I actively seek out trick-taking, which is a mechanic that I had thoroughly rejected until then. Now, before we dive into the actual 15 for the list, today we have a partner of the video is Mint Mobile. Now, I've talked about them before, but in particular, I want to thank Mint Mobile today because we actually have a extra special offer that we're going to talk about today, so you can enjoy that. But basically, I've talked about this in a few videos already, but I signed up for Mint back in December, and then so when they Mint Mobile, I signed up for Mint Mobile back in December, and so when they reached out to me a few months ago to actually say, hey, we'd love to partner with you on some videos, I was like, great, I already use and like your service and believe in your service, which is an important part. Mint Mobile is going to give you access to the nation's largest 4G LTE network, and it's going to basically be giving you can sign up, you can switch over to them very quickly and easily. It's like 10 minutes. I'll have links down below and all those stuff, and make sure to use my link if you do sign up. But it's going to give you, again, nation's largest 4G LTE network. Most people should be saving money, not a guarantee, but you should be saving on this. My personal spending dropped from around $50 a month to $15 a month, and today in particular, they're giving their unlimited access plan. Their highest plans are all for $15 a month. So effectively, it's an additional 50% savings on top of their already low prices if you want to get like their full, I believe it's 30 gig a month or whatnot instead of the 15 or whatever. But if you get their highest access plan, it's currently everything is for $15 instead. So if you were interested in trying it out, please use my link. You have until July 14th, you have until July 14th to use my link down below to get access to that like higher plan, discount, all those things. I highly recommend checking it out. Again, I am a user of the platform. I know this is one of those, YouTube ad spot type situations, but I am a user of the system. I've been using it for months, and I genuinely believe that for most of you, you'll save money while having great service along the way. And with that, let's go ahead and start into the 15, starting off with, and this is where they are ranked. We're going to dive into the ranked ones over here. We have Dice Miner over here. Dice Miner is one that, the 15 minutes, again, it's going to be 2 players. Box says 20 to 30. You can knock this game out in 15 minutes with 2 players. I've done it, but you do need to be playing it at that 2-player count. So again, slight asterisk here. That's why we have 18 games. We have our bases covered. But Dice Miner is a surprisingly fun dice drafting game. One that, to me, like it was not one that was on my radar at all at first. Initial reviews were kind of mixed, and even now, it's not the highest rated game, but it's a satisfying game to play through. As you go through Dice Miner, there's basically a game of dice drafting. You're going to have a mountain. You're going to have a mountain over here that you're going to be trying to go through as you play through it. You have these cards in the central mountain, and you're slowly drafting cards from that mountain to be able to satisfy a variety of scoring goals. Across 3 rounds of play, you're pulling dice and trying to roll them when you need to, re-roll them when you need to, use them for your various goals, turn bad things into good things. The entire game is a very quick, easy to play dice drafting system that, for me, not only, the reason I'm comfortable including it, even though it's like, oh, only at 2 players at 15 minutes, is to me, 2 players is the way I enjoy it most. The first time I played Dice Miner, I played it as a 4-player game, and it wasn't as much for me. You're playing with the same number of dice, which just means you get less done, and it was a less satisfying experience. 3 players is okay, but 2 players is specifically where I like this game the most. It feels the most strategic, and it feels like you get the most done. To me, this thrives and excels as a 2-player game, which is where you can knock it out in 15 to 20 minutes. My number 14 is going to be a small box game, and possibly the most recent addition on this list, which is District Noir. I think it is the most recent addition. Before Northwood's a recent one in my collection. But I think from the rest of these, this is the newest one on my list. District Noir from Pandasaurus Games is actually a reprint of an older title, but it's effectively a 2-player drafting game where you're going to have a row of cards that's being slowly built on. Now, on your turn, you either play a card to the row, or you take the row. So similar to games like Colorado, similar to games like Ra, it's a constant touch point. I should have included Colorado. Colorado's a fantastic game. It does play longer than 15 minutes, though. Anyways, I should have included No Thanks. No Thanks, it's a fantastic game. That one's actually in 15 minutes. This should be 19 games. District Noir, it has that aspect where you're trying to build out a pool. There's a degree of push your luck as you sit there and add things to a pool that then incentivize the other players to possibly take from that pool. but maybe they respond by adding their own things to the pool, and now it's your turn. Do you take or do you add? Do you take or do you add? Every round you can only take once. And so when you make the pool better versus when you take it, there's a constant back and forth tension, and I love that tension. Combine that with the fact that there's 3 instant win cards, and if you get all 3 of those cards, you instantaneously win. I love the mechanic. When you play games like Seven Wonders Duel or District Noir, when you have both a point scoring system and an instant win mechanic, if done right, it provides a degree of tension to the game state where you never know what to go for or what to fight or push back against. District Noir, an excellent game. Highly recommend this. 2-player drafting in 15-20 minutes. What's the box say again? Box says 50. Box says 15 minutes. We got it down. I'm not gonna go by the box anyway. I'm going by my own experience with them. But that brings me to number 13, which is one that's gone down for me, but I still love, and that's One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I really enjoy One Night Ultimate Werewolf. Box says 10 minutes. Strictly speaking, you set that timer for whatever you want, and usually in our group, that timer is set for around 7 to 8 minutes. So a 7 to 8 minute game. You can play this twice in 15 minutes. But One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak is an excellent game experience that is going to give you hidden role. I'm going to say that about everything. It's going to be like, it's an excellent game. It's an excellent game. They're all excellent games. That's why they're on this list. But One Night Ultimate Werewolf is going to give you a small time frame game, a small box game. Most of these games are a small box. I made sure not to exclusively include roll and writes and button shies and to have a few large box games just for the sake of variety. But this is a hidden role game where you set a timer, you play for 8 minutes, and then you sit there and lie to all your friends. That's what you do the entire time. You're like, I was the werewolf. I'm not. You don't say that. Don't say that. We'll say that. Actually, sometimes I do say that. But you're like, I was the robber. I swapped your role in the night. You're like, you're not the robber. I'm the robber. I'm like, oh, so you're the robber. Okay, I gotcha now. Although that's how you play the first time. As you continue to play with the same group of people, you start to develop an evolving narrative of how you learn to lie to each other. That's what the game is. It's about the fact that you will lie to each other, but then you'll also slowly drip pieces of real information to one another. And the game is about trying to figure out what happened during the night so you can figure out whether you are even good or bad, because you may not be the role you started off with, which sounds like chaos, and it is at first. This is a game that the first time I played it, I was like, nope, I'm going to stick with the Resistance Avalon. That's more my jam. But I decided to keep trying it. And as I did, I started to figure out the puzzle, and it became a game system that I adore. It has the chaos, it has such degrees of chaos, but also maintenance and control. Playing this with random people, not my jam. Playing this with a group of friends that have learned to figure out how we all communicate or don't communicate, that is where this game thrives for me. That's One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I have the base game inside the Daybreak expansion. It's both all together. From there, we're going to move to my number 12. My number 12 is Tranquility. Tranquility from Tristram Rossum says 20 minutes on the box. Again, you could play it in 15 minutes. You definitely could, especially if you're playing on Board Game Arena. If you're playing on Board Game Arena, you can play it in 10 minutes. But this game, and you could play it on Board Game Arena. You could try regular Tranquility and Tranquility Ascent, both on Board Game Arena if you want to try something online and play this even faster. Although if we're counting Board Game Arena, you could probably count Ticket to Ride as a 15-minute game if you're playing with 2 players. But anyways, Tranquility of Here. Tranquility of Here is a cooperative experience in which you're going to be working either solo, you can play the solo too, or with other players as you play cards down into a grid. A large grid, 8x8 if I recall correctly, so like 36 possible cards, and you're fitting the numbers 1 to 80 into that grid, but there's a way you have to go in sequence, and you have to be mindful of discarding cards because you will have to discard certain cards as you go through it, depending on the exact, how close they are to other cards. So you're balancing a lot as you go through this. You're delicately trying to figure out the ecosystem at play and how you're going to engage with it as you build out this grid. Very satisfying to play. The only annoying part, and one of the reasons Board Game Arena is faster to play, is the setup of the outer perimeters. A bit obnoxious to go through. Not that obnoxious, but like it adds like 3 minutes to a game that plays in 15. And so overall, I recommend Tranquility as a nice, calming experience for 1 to 5 players. That's what the box says. I wouldn't play it 1 to 5 players. I'd play it 1 to 3 players. I think 3 is where I'd probably cap out on this. Even at 4, I think it starts to get a little less fun. But 1 to 3, I think this game thrives at. I've enjoyed it solo, I've enjoyed it 2, I've enjoyed it at 3, and it plays well in 15 minutes, assuming you're all antisocial and refusing to engage in table talk, in which case it's 20 minutes instead. Number 11 on the list is going to be a lesser known one, very much lesser known, and this one has the time printed on the box, and that time is 9 Minute Kingdom. I like this game a lot. This game took me by surprise. Now the box is garbage. It's not good quality in terms of the box. Nothing really fits in here once you sleeve it. It's a problem. It's not the best, but I will suffer through that for the game because the game is good. And it's actually 9 minutes, or more specifically, it can be 9 minutes. I timed one of our plays to make sure that it actually could be in that time frame, and it can. Now, there is a solo mode to this game as well. I have not played that, but I have played through the rest of this. I played through a variety of player counts, and the basic idea is you're building out a grid. You're going to be creating a 3x3 grid. There's a million expansions and variations. You could do a 4x4. There's different things you can do, but the basic game mode involves you playing out a 3x3 grid to fulfill different scoring objectives as you go through it, to play cards down onto the table as you play through it, to just slowly build out a 3x3 grid, and to try to score as many points as possible through the way the goals are going to incentivize you, and through the basic scoring mechanism as well. I find this highly rewarding. If you can pick up a copy cheap of it, this is a good game, and it's one of those games that definitely goes in the underrated or, you know, lesser known gems, or whatever you want to call it, hidden gems. Hidden gems sounds better than lesser known gems, but it's definitely one of those games that is not well known, and I think it's excellent. I think it's a good time and a good experience, and plays in a very short time frame, and that 9 minutes is not inaccurate, as opposed to 8 Minute Kingdom, which is a blatant bald-faced lie. Moving on, we have number 10 on my list. Number 10 is going to be a bigger box here, although I am partially cheating by including the entire box of Railroad Inc. as a bigger box. And I will say, I am missing one of them. Not missing, it's on my shelf over there because I'm middle playing it. But Railroad Inc. is a delightful experience that comes in a variety of smorgasbords of how to play it. Also playable on Board Game Arena, by the way. I think a few of these are playable on Board Game Arena or online in some form or another. The Crew, I think, has a Board Game Arena implementation, I think. Either way, this is Railroad Inc. Railroad Inc. is a roll and write game, and I think it's the only roll and write game that I included on this list today. I almost included Trails of Tucana. It got bumped because I genuinely was trying to keep it to 15 games. Not that that worked out well for me. But Railroad Inc. is a delightful experience that, again, box says 20 to 30 minutes, and practically speaking, in fact, fun fact, Trails of Tucana on the side of the box says 15 minutes. Railroad Inc. says 20 to 30 minutes. Part of the tricky part about box times is that Trails of Tucana, in my opinion, generally is closer to 20-25 minutes, and this one's closer to 15-20 minutes, so they're kind of both lying to you there, and I went with my own personal experience over what the box says because I chose to. But Railroad Inc. is delightful. It's a fast-playing roll and write game that has a ton of variability baked into it because of the nature of this giant box and the ways to play the game. Even in every individual small box has variability baked in with a few expansions and bonus cards and things you can do in the game. But the basic idea is you roll a handful of dice, and then all the players use those dice to create their own way that they want to use those roads and those rails in order to build out the best infrastructure and framework to accomplish the basic points and to accomplish the unique scoring goals you have in play, either through expansions or scoring cards, depending on which small box you're playing. There's also that central box, which is chock full of all these modules you can play with. This is sliding off. Center box is all the modules you can go ahead and add to it, which add a ton of small little extra dice you can add to the game that just enhance or change up your gameplay, but it does so in such a fun, simple, you know, across 6 or 7 rounds of play, depending on how you're doing it. 6 or 7 rounds of play, you're going to assign those dice, draw your tracks, and try to score as many points as possible. I love it. It's fun, it's simple, and it plays in a fast time, and it's simultaneous play, which means even if playing it as a 6-player count, you're only equal to your slowest player. So playing a 2-player game might take you 15 minutes. Playing a 6-player game might take you 18 minutes or something like that, or longer. Than tabletop will affect any of these games. It is what it is. But that is my number 10, which brings me to my number 9. My number 9 is another small box game, and that's going to be Cockroach Poker, or more specifically, Krakenlaken Poker Royale. It's Cockroach Poker Royale, it's just in German and whatnot. This is the Royal version of Cockroach Poker, which the two games are basically identical, but Cockroach Poker Royal includes an additional element, which is the Royal cards, which to me adds an extra level of gameplay that I highly recommend. It's also significantly harder to pick up because it's out of print, so regular Cockroach Poker is in print from Devere Games. This one might go in print at some point, and if it does, I highly recommend picking it up. I think Cockroach Poker is a bit easier to introduce, and this one is better to play. But that's a lot of time spent not talking about the game. What is the game? The game is bluffing. That's what the game is. You're going to be trying to not have 4 of the same little bug or animal in front of you. You're trying to not have those cards. And so the game's a constant passing of you say to somebody, I have a cockroach. And they either call you, meaning they have to say, I believe you or I don't believe you, in which case someone's going to be getting the card depending if they call you correctly. Meaning it doesn't matter what you say. The question is, do they believe you, and do you fool them effectively? Do you fool them? Whether you denied it or whether you lied or you told the truth, did you fool them? Alternatively, they can pick up the card and look at it and say, actually, by the way, it's a bat, and pass it to the next person. And so until eventually get to a point where no players have seen it, when the last person's the last person who hasn't seen it, they have to make a judgment call. But along the way, you involve this narrative of who believes who, and then as players start building up cards in front of them, it changes the whole puzzle, because suddenly if you have 3 scorpions in front of you, everyone wants to hand you that 4th scorpion, and it changes the whole narrative of how the game is approached based on the cards that build up in front of the other players. Delightful bluffing game, always good for just laughs and a fun and a good time, and strategy all baked into a tiny little box that has rounds going for 15 minutes or less easily. Sometimes more, sometimes more. I should stop saying that. Just assume these games can go for 15 minutes, but they don't always do so. The next one is ranked as 15 minutes in the box, and this one is Tzaar. I was actually debating between choosing Tzaar or Yinch for this list. 2 of the games, my favorite 2 games in the gift series are Tzaar and Yinch. And I was debating which one to pick, and then it made my decision easier when Yinch said 20 minutes in the box and Tzaar said 15. I don't know if that's true or not. They both come across as short for me. I would have picked either, but I did choose Tzaar because of that. But Tzaar to me is possibly my favorite in the series. Yinch I think is a little bit more classically well-liked, but Tzaar is my personal favorite from the series. And this one has you trying to build up these stacks of things, and you have to win. You either win because the player can't move, or you win because you've eliminated all the pieces of a single type. You have 3 types of pieces, and if any one of those pieces are gone, then you're done for. Which means it's a constant game of trying to take out your opponent's pieces while building up and protecting your own as you charge rapidly across the board, moving in straight lines across across open gaps to eliminate your opponent's next piece, although only if their stack is as high or lower than your stack. If your stack's bigger, then you can't be hurt by a smaller stack. And so it's a game of protection and offense at the same time. Defense, offense, defense and offense, attacking and defending. That's what I want to say. Attacking and defending at the same time as you try to manage your board and your pieces. One of my favorite abstract games. In fact, my favorite abstract game is actually here today, but it's not this one. This is one of my favorite abstract games. Like this, if I was doing a top 10 abstract games list, this would be like the top 3, I think. I'm pretty sure it would be the top 3. But that's Tzaar. And my number 7 is going to be Radlands. Radlands from Rocksteady Games. Again, 20 minutes in the box. Technically says 20 to 40. This is the only one I actually felt bad. And when I look at all the games I included, even though they can range, this is the only one that 15 minutes might arguably be pushing it. I probably should have taken it off the list entirely, but it is what it is. 20 to 40 minutes, I think that's probably accurate. For me, probably close to 20 to 30, but I think 15 minutes, this is the only one that I don't know if I've ever actually played in 15 minutes. I don't know. I might have. I haven't timed every game. I usually don't time my games, weirdly enough. I know. I'm the odd one out. But Radlands from Rocksteady Games is a game that I was not impressed by this when it first launched. When it first launched on crowdfunding, I was like, great, a 2-player head-to-head card game. We don't have enough of those, and that's a joke because we have plenty of those. We have too many of those, in fact. I find in general, partially because of the ease of prototyping and playing, I find head-to-head card games are one of the more common, overdone categories and genres out there, and to that end, it's harder to stand out. It's not that they're not good, it's just harder to stand out. When I see one, it's like, is it a good one, or is it just another one that was easy to kind of make and put together? Hey, here's some abilities, here's the way the abilities interact, and now draw cards and attack each other. I mean, sure, you can abstract any game to sounding silly, but that's the way I feel personally as a consumer. I feel that they're a little bit too present and not always worth paying attention to. Okay, this is where Radlands comes in, because I tried Radlands after the Kickstarter. I did not back the Kickstarter. I got it after the Kickstarter, and I tried it, and I was like, this is really, really good. Devin, my good friend Devin Talks Tabletop, showed me this game, and I really enjoyed it. We played multiple games back-to-back, and then I've continued to show this game to others and teach them and expose them to this game because of how good the card play is in it. It's just simple. It's a simple puzzle of building up some more cards, attacking each other, but the way the system works, it's the economy of the system, the strategic choices you make, when and where you choose to protect yourself and sacrifice. It's just a very, very good engine that I cannot recommend enough. That is Radlands from Rocksteady Games. Also, probably not 15 minutes. Then from there, we have number 6 is going to be Sprawlopolis. Now again, I told you already, I tried to not include too many button shy games on this list, and to that, we only have 2. We have Sprawlopolis is my first one over here. Sprawlopolis is the solo game, along with 4 Northwood and some of these games being playable solo. Sprawlopolis is my main solo game on this list. This is a delightful little solo puzzle of trying to build cards out in a city. I've talked about it extensively on the channel. If you watched many videos, if you haven't watched many videos, please like, subscribe, and all those fun things. I'd love to see you around more. But most of you, I assume, have watched many of my videos, in which case you've probably heard me talk about this game. Even just this past 2 months, I put out 3 or 4 videos on button shy games and talked about Sprawlopolis a few times. I think it's such a good, simple, compelling game. Plays in around 15 minutes as you sit there and layer out cards to build your city. You see, you have these cards in the game. These are the cards you're going to have. You're going to take these cards and put them down the board, and they're going to layer over each other and or next to each other as you try to accomplish a bunch of scoring goals. You have different scoring goals every single game. You're going to mix up the combination of them, and you have a ton of replayability because of the combination of scoring goals, because of the expansions that you have for the game, because of the way you have Agripolis and Naturopolis and different ways to implement and combine. But Sprawlopolis, even just the base 18 cards, will give you so much replayability for the $10 that you spend. This is one of the best purchases as far as getting the best bang for your buck in the board game space between what the game costs you and how much potential replayability and gaming experience it will give you. It travels well, it plays on a plane, it plays with friends. I don't recommend it as much with friends. It's really best as a solo game, even though you could kind of play it multiplayer. It's really best as a solo game. But that's Sprawlopolis, a great choice. Highly recommend this one, which brings us to our number 5 over here. My number 5 is another big box one, and that is Ragnarocks. Now, Ragnarocks, the box says 30 minutes, and I call that a lie. I knock out games of Ragnarocks in anywhere between, I would say anywhere between 10 to 25 minutes, maybe. This is a game that I'll play this back to back for an hour and manage to get 7 games in. That happens on a regular basis. Ragnarocks is such a good time. From Grey Fox Games, and yes, Santorini was possibly eligible as well, but Santorini I find does take longer than 15 minutes, usually for me. I find Santorini is a bit more thinking, Ragnarocks is a bit more fast-paced and moving. Not to say it's not strategic, it is strategic, or I would not like it. But in Ragnarocks, you're basically fighting off on this grid over here. You're going to have this map on the board, and what you're doing is you're going to be having your color Vikings as you move around and plant runestones on the board. You're trying to section off larger areas of territory so that you can win the game by having the most points, although there's sometimes instant win conditions as well, depending on the roles you're playing with it. And that's part of the fun of the game because you have roles, you have characters. So there's asymmetric characters in the game, and you're going to choose different characters for each side of the table, and each side is going to have a slight difference to the way they work on the game, the way they can move things around, the way they win, the extra abilities they have access to. And that means every time you play Ragnarok's, you're playing against a slightly different matchup, which forces you to confront the same general game, but with a different mentality of what you need to do to take advantage of your character and to stimulate your opponent's ability to do much. I find it such a fun, compelling abstract strategy game. And again, this would definitely be my top 10 abstract. I should do a top 10 abstract strategy games. That's another video. But this would definitely be in my top 10 abstract strategy games. It's not in my top 5. I think it might be. It might be number 5. I could see it being number 5. Maybe even number 4. Maybe. I don't know. It's really good. It's really, really good is what I'm saying. It's really, really good. Why is it high on the list in attack? That's a good question. I think it's because well, as much as I enjoy TAC is the same game to game, and Ragnarocks is variable game to game. So even though on this list I rank them differently, I think Tzaar, not TAC. Why did I say TAC? Oops. Well, TAC's the next game. We'll talk about TAC shortly. But Tzaar, I think I prefer Tzaar as far as my pure rating of the game. But Ragnarok's is often the one I want to play more because I want to try new god powers. So that's a tricky one. So it ranked higher on this list, but I think I rate Tzaar higher. But that's spoilers to my number 4 over here, which is TAC. I accidentally said TAC. This is the last abstract on the list. We got 3 abstracts: TAC, Tzaar, and Ragnarok's. These 3 will be my top 10 abstracts when I one day do that. But in the meantime, TAC to me is, I believe, my favorite abstract. I say I believe because I go back and forth on whether I prefer Mythic Mischief to this, although Mythic Mischief is not a 15-minute game. It's not a 15-minute game. But TAC over here, TAC is a delightful experience, and it's based on the world of Patrick Rothfuss. In this game, you're going to be on this board. You can kind of see the components over here, but you have these boards over here. You're going to be playing on a board. You can play on anywhere from a 3x3 grid to as high as a 6x6 grid. The game expands with you as you add pieces and as you add rules, which makes it such an easy game to teach. I love introducing people to TAC because I'm like, hey, here's the game, and I teach them a game. Like, actually, that's not the game. Here's the game, and I teach them the game. And like, actually, that's still not the game. Now here's the game, and I teach them the third version of the game, and I'm like, this is the game, and it's amazing. TAC is just so delightful. It's such a good abstract strategy game that has such degrees of, not variability to the experience. So again, like, Ragnarok's is going to beat TAC in terms of variability, just because there's no gods, there's no differences. The game is the same game to game, but it is one that is so rewarding to go through, and it's so rewarding to play against a player who's evolving their strategy alongside you. So you beat them the first game, and then they're like, I see what you did, then they start beating you. And you get to a point where you're playing on 3 different levels of strategy, and then someone just builds a line of 5 pieces in a row. You're trying to connect pieces from one side of the board to the other, not necessarily in a straight line, but just in a connected line. But then you can also move pieces, and you can move stacks of pieces, and you can drop pieces off along the way, which gives you so much strategy and control, but also chaos at the same time. And being able to see the patterns and build around those patterns and evolve to the game state while you build up these blocking walls and while you use your capstone to crush it. There's so many fun things going on in TAC, and it's based off an IP. This is a game that was in a book. It was in The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and they talked about this game called TAC, and then they're like, hey, let's make a game, and it's an amazing game. It's my favorite abstract, debatably. My favorite abstract. It's such a good game. I highly, highly recommend TAC. My number 3 over here is going to be Air, Land, and Sea, and I love Air, Land, and Sea. And this particular version is Critters at War, which is the cartoon version of Air, Land, and Sea, and I just like that because I just like the cartoon art more. It's more compelling, it's more friendly. I don't have a problem with the regular one. I think it's fine. I just think this is cute and adorable, and it still has that gameplay that's so, so good. See, Air, Land, and Sea is just 18 cards. That's all it is. And there's another version called Spies, Lies, and Disguise, or Flies, Lies, and Disguise in the cartoon version. I don't remember the exact name, but there's another version that just gives you 3 more kind of factions or arenas to go through. It's great. I recommend it, but if you're starting off, I would start off with this one over here, and you could mix and match them if you want. I haven't bothered yet, but I should probably do so. But this game has 18 cards, and your first game is okay, but your second game is better, and your third game is better, because as you learn the 18 cards, there's so much strategy baked into understanding, well, if I have these 6 cards, because you'll start with 6, which means your opponent has 6 of 12 cards. You don't know which 6 of 12, but you know for sure the 6 in your hand, and as they start playing cards, you start to piece out what they have, and this is the part that's the best about the game, because it's not about winning or losing a round. At any point, you can choose not to play and to instead withdraw, and if you withdraw early, your opponent gets fewer points, which means this game is just as much about the actual tactical play of how to order your cards and what to potentially react to your opponent's play and what you think they might have and how they can possibly win, but it's also about knowing when to fold them. You have to know when to fold, because if I walk into a game, generally when I play Critters of War, when I play Air, Land, and Sea, I would say that I don't win the most rounds, but I fold early when I think I'm losing. I walk away and you get 2 points, and meanwhile, if you stay until the end, I get 6 points, and you only need 12 points to win. So if you stay until the bitter end, you only need to lose 2 matches to lose. But if you slowly pace yourself out, you can lose the matches that don't matter. You can have, hey, here's 2 points, here's 3 points, here's 4 points, and then you can still win the game because you're winning the ones that matter. I love Air, Land, and Sea. I love this game. It's so good. There's, again, 2 versions of the game. The cartoon version I just find cuter, and I like the fact that there's variability. These flies, lies in disguise, whatever it's called, it's really good. Like, it's not an offshoot. It's really, really good. I just think this one's a drop more straightforward and a little better to start off with, but if you have one, you probably should and probably will get the other. My number two pick over here is Skulls of Sedlec. Skulls of Sedlec is my other button shy pick, and again, a solid 15-minute or less experience. You can easily knock this out in 10 minutes, but Skulls of Sedlec has you digging up graves from a graveyard and then placing them down into a little pyramid structure, and they're all going to score differently. All these different skulls on the card. Each card is comprised of 2 skulls, so they can show you over here. Each card is comprised of 2 skulls, and each skull has different scoring aspects as far as how they score. And so you have these cards that are like, hey, this skull scores if it's adjacent to the lovers. So like the lovers, they want to be together. This skull is going to score 1 point, plain and simple. This skull is going to score 2 points, but you can only score it once per level. So if you have 2 priests on the same level, kind of wasting your economy there. Meanwhile, this card's royal, and it's going to score for all the peasants below it. And so you have this economy of how you build your structure. And it's just such good point scoring variability, with the variability of the fact that you also have expansions for this, and the expansions you can mix in a variety of expansions that give you small different rules adjustments, the executioner, the poets, all these different things that give you just adjustments to how you play the game and force you to re-examine what combination of cards will effectively work best as you build out these structures and these pyramids. I think Skull is fantastic. I think it's absolutely fantastic. My only real critique is as you get more and more expansions, it can get a bit unwieldy, and I'm somebody who doesn't love shifting out expansions. I kind of want to put it all together. I do put it all together with a slight rules adjustment. I just have 9 graves instead of 6. If you play the game, you'll know what I mean, but that gives you more access to different things. It works for me at least. But anyways, Skulls of Sedlec, phenomenal game, fantastic experience, highly recommend it. That is my number 2. And lastly, my number 1 pick for a game that can play in 15 minutes, and can is the key word. The box says 15 minutes, but that is going to be Codenames, and I'm including Codenames Duet and regular Codenames in there, literally in the boxes, both of them in the same box, so like I have no option. But Codenames and Codenames Duet, not Codenames Pictures, that's not as good. It's still good. I still own Codenames Pictures, and most of the offshoots I don't like at all. But Codenames and Codenames Duet is a game that plays generally in that 15-minute range. It can drag out. It can. I'm not going to say it can't, but the box says 15 minutes, and the box doesn't lie. Except sometimes. But Codenamed Duet is a party game that has a healthy dose of strategy in it. This game is incredibly popular. It's one of the most popular games in the board game space because of how mass market this game has gone. You can play this game online for free. They have an app coming out as well. Overall, CGE just has a massive hit on their hands. A game that bridges both worlds. It gives you the strategy of a real, of a game that has so much tension and strategy and has variability. So many party games suffer from the fact that you're looking at the same card again and again and again. But Codenames works because it's never about one card. It's about the combination of cards. And that means there's a near infinite pool of possible ways you can approach the game, so it forces you to constantly re-examine things. It's a constantly evolving game around the players, around the cards, around the combinations. You don't simply see the same card again and give the same clue. You can't possibly do so. In Codenames, you're going to have a grid of cards, and what you're doing is you're trying to give clues to your teammate, or teammates, depending on the player count. And what you do there is you sit there and say a number and a word. So maybe, for example, maybe I'll say ship 3. And you don't necessarily know it, but the things I'm trying to get you to guess, I'm trying to get you to guess wave. I'm trying to get you to guess car. Why? Car from ship? I don't know. It's the only other vehicle on the table. It's not obvious. It's not always easy. And then ocean's the last one. So you knock out ocean pretty quickly. You go to wave pretty quickly. But from there, looking at the table, the pools of cards on the table, maybe instead of, car, you go to bottle. Because you saw bottle and you thought a ship in a bottle. And I didn't think of that. I didn't see that. And so the cards on the table define what isn't a safe clue. So you're constantly evolving your approach to the game based on what's on the table, and also partially based on your teammate. Knowing how your teammate thinks, how they operate, and how they work, it changes the way you engage with the game, how far-fetched your clues are, how direct they are. It changes. Everything changes in this game. I think Codenames is a fantastic experience that I absolutely adore. Highly, highly recommend. And that is my 15, 18, 19 if you include no thanks, 19 games that we're going to talk about today that play in 15 minutes or less, mostly. My videos have too many caveats. There's too many caveats. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what I missed. What game plays in 15 minutes or less, generally, that you think is absolutely incredible, highly recommend, and just want people, myself, others, whatever, to know. Let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this helpful. This is a list of great filler games that play in that time frames when you just don't have a lot of time. Or sometimes you don't have a lot of time, but then you play it for an hour straight and it doesn't really become a filler in the end. That happens too. But in any case, until next time, I hope you have a good one.